You're sitting in a meeting room, watching someone confidently pitch an idea that makes absolutely no sense. Everyone nods along. 3 months later, that person gets promoted. You, with your carefully researched proposal that could actually save the company money, still waiting for your email to get a response. Here's what Machiavelli understood 500 years ago that most of us are just figuring out now. Intelligence doesn't get you to the top. Never has. Never will. Let me show you exactly what does. Think about the last time you watched a political debate. The smartest person in the room almost never wins. The person who wins is the one who understands that most people aren't listening to logic. They're watching a performance. They're feeling something. And the candidate who makes them feel the right thing, that's who gets the votes. Machiavelli wrote The Prince in 1513, and in it, he laid out a truth so uncomfortable that people are still pretending it doesn't exist. The qualities that make you good don't make you powerful. In fact, they often make you powerless. But here's where it gets interesting. When Machiavelli talks about successful rulers, he's not actually praising stupidity. He's revealing something far more sinister about how power actually works. See, the people running things aren't necessarily dumb. They're just playing a completely different game than you are. While you're trying to be right, they're trying to be remembered. While you're building arguments, they're building loyalty. While you're fact-checking, they're fear-mongering. Let that sink in. The gap between what works in theory and what works in practice is where your entire career lives or dies. You can be brilliant at your job and still watch someone less competent take credit for your work. You can have the perfect solution and watch a worse idea get implemented because the person pitching it knew how to work the room. Here's the thing. Machiavelli didn't write The Prince because he loved ruthless dictators. He wrote it because he was sick of watching incompetent rulers destroy their own cities through sheer idealism. He'd seen leaders who were kind, generous, and honest get absolutely demolished by neighbors who were willing to lie, manipulate, and strike first. So what do you do with this information? First, understand the 3 types of people in every organization. Machiavelli never explicitly lists these, but they're woven through everything he wrote. Type 1. The idealists. These are the people who believe that good work speaks for itself. They think merit matters. They genuinely care about doing the right thing. And they are absolutely shocked when they get passed over for someone who spent more time managing perceptions than actually working. Type 2. The operators. These people understand the game. They know that visibility matters more than competence. They know that credit flows to whoever controls the narrative. They're not necessarily smarter than you, but they've figured out that organizations don't reward the most valuable player. They reward the most visible one. Type 3. The truly incompetent. And this is the group that baffles everyone. These are people who genuinely don't know what they're doing, but they've mastered one crucial skill. They never look uncertain. They project confidence so aggressively that people assume they must know something everyone else doesn't. Now here's what most people miss about that third group. They're not running the world because they're stupid. They're running it because stupid people don't suffer from analysis paralysis. When you're smart, you see 17 different angles to every problem. You understand the nuances. You know what could go wrong. So you hesitate. You qualify your statements. You say things like, "It depends," and "we should consider," and "the data suggests." The incompetent person sees one angle, doesn't realize there are 16 others, and charges forward with absolute certainty. And in that moment of certainty, people follow. Think about this. Who sounds more leader-like in a crisis? The person who says, "This is a complex situation with multiple variables we need to carefully assess," or the person who says, I know exactly what we need to do. The second person might be completely wrong, but they sound like a leader. And when people are scared or confused, they don't want complexity. They want someone who acts like they have answers. Machiavelli wrote, "Since love and fear can hardly exist together, if we must choose between them, it is far safer to be feared than loved." But let me show you how this actually works in modern terms. Your coworker Sarah works 80-hour weeks. She's brilliant. She fixes problems before anyone knows they exist. She's nice to everyone. Management barely knows her name. Your coworker David works 40 hours a week, makes everyone slightly uncomfortable, and has convinced the entire executive team that he's indispensable. He's not. But he's made sure every success in his department gets framed as David's initiative, and every failure gets quietly blamed on external factors. Here's where it gets interesting. Sarah is trying to be loved. David understands that in organizational politics, it's better to be necessary. He's created a situation where people might not like him, but they're afraid of what happens if he leaves. That's Machiavellian strategy in action. Now, I'm not saying you should become a manipulative jerk. Stay with me here. What Machiavelli actually teaches us is the difference between how we wish the world worked and how it actually works. In your ideal world, the best ideas win. The hardest workers get promoted. The truth matters. In the real world, the ideas that get implemented are the ones pitched by people who understand politics. The people who get promoted are the ones who've made themselves visible to decision makers. And the truth matters less than the story. People are willing to believe. Let me give you a concrete example. Two managers present their quarterly results. Manager A had a genuinely good quarter with solid, steady growth. She presents 17 slides with detailed metrics, carefully qualified insights, and nuanced analysis of market conditions. Manager B had an okay quarter that he's reframed as exceptional. He presents 3 slides. One shows a dramatic upward arrow. One tells a story about a key client win that made everything possible. One lays out a bold vision for next quarter that has nothing to do with whether he can actually deliver it. Who do you think the executives remember? Manager B isn't necessarily lying. He's just curating reality. He's choosing which facts to emphasize and which to downplay. He's building a narrative where he's the protagonist. And narratives stick in people's brains in ways that spreadsheets never will. Here's the thing that Machiavelli understood, that modern self-help gurus don't want to tell you. Morality and effectiveness are often at odds. Not always, but often enough that you need a strategy for handling the gap. So what do? You have to decide which game you're playing. Are you trying to be good at your job, or are you trying to get power? Because these aren't the same thing, and pretending they are is how smart people end up reporting to dumb ones. If you're trying to be good at your job, fine. But understand that this is a choice, and it comes with consequences. You might do incredible work and never get the recognition you deserve. You might watch less talented people zoom past you, and you need to make peace with that. If you're trying to get power, you need to study how power actually moves. And this is where Machiavelli gets really practical. Power doesn't flow to the most deserving. It flows through relationships, through perception, through the ability to make other powerful people feel secure in supporting you. The king doesn't promote the smartest advisor. He promotes the advisor who makes him look good and feel unthreatened. Your CEO doesn't care if you're brilliant in ways she doesn't understand. She cares if you can solve problems she's worried about, in language she speaks, in time frames that make her look good to the board. Think about every promotion you've ever witnessed. How many went to the person who was objectively best at the job? How many went to the person who'd successfully managed their relationship with the decision maker? But here's where Machiavelli gets really interesting. He doesn't just say, "Be ruthless and you'll win." He's far more sophisticated than that. He says the successful prince must appear virtuous while being willing to act without virtue when necessary. You have to understand the optics. You have to manage the story. The truly stupid person running things doesn't get this distinction. They're just aggressive and assume that's enough. The truly smart Machiavellian understands that you need people to believe you're on their side, that you care about the right things, that you're trustworthy, right up until the moment when being trustworthy would cost you everything. Let me show you how this plays out. You've probably worked with someone who takes credit for other people's work. Blatant theft, right? And everyone sees through it, right? Wrong. The skilled operator doesn't steal credit. They redistribute it. They make sure that in every meeting, every email, every conversation, they're positioned as the central node. They're the one who coordinated the team's excellent work, or facilitated this crucial collaboration. They're not lying. They're just making sure the narrative flows through them. And over time, people forget who actually did the work. They remember who told them about it. Now here's what most people miss about why this works. Human beings are not rational creatures. We're storytelling creatures. We don't remember data points. We remember characters and plots. The person who positions themselves as the protagonist of every story isn't smarter than you. They've just figured out how human memory actually works. Machiavelli wrote that everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are. Think about what that means for a second. Your reputation isn't built on reality. It's built on the tiny fraction of your work that's visible to people who matter. You could be solving critical problems in the background every single day. But if the only thing your boss sees is you occasionally missing a deadline on something visible, that's your reputation. Meanwhile, your coworker, who's created nothing of value, but makes sure to be in every important meeting, contributing just enough to be remembered, that person is leadership material. So what do? You make a choice. You can play the game as it actually exists, or you can refuse and accept the consequences. But you cannot pretend the game is something other than what it is and expect to win. If you choose to play, here's what Machiavelli would tell you. Stop trying to be liked. Start trying to be necessary. Don't build your value on how hard you work. Build it on solving visible problems for powerful people. Don't wait for your work to speak for itself. Learn to speak for your work in ways that make other people look good. And here's the uncomfortable part. You have to be willing to make moves that purely good people wouldn't make. Not evil moves, but calculated ones, strategic ones. Moves where you put your interests first and dress them up as being good for everyone. The meeting where you could correct your boss, but instead stay quiet. Strategic silence. The project where you could do everything yourself, but instead you involve influential stakeholders who add no value, but will remember they were part of it. Strategic collaboration. The email where you could be direct, but instead you carefully copy people who need to see you handling important things. Strategic visibility. None of this is lying. It's curation. It's understanding that people are watching a highlight reel of your career, not the full director's cut. So you'd better make sure the highlights serve your interests. Let that sink in. The stupid people running the world aren't winning because they're better at the job. They're winning because they figured out that the job isn't the job. The job is managing how people perceive your relationship to the job. Machiavelli's most famous line is probably, "The ends justify the means." But here's the thing. He never actually wrote that. What he wrote was far more nuanced. He said that in judging the actions of rulers, we should look at the outcome. If a ruler does something that seems cruel, but it brings stability and prosperity to their people, was it actually cruel? Or was it necessary? The modern version of this. Your coworker, who seems like a shameless self-promoter, but who's using that visibility to push through changes that actually help the team. Are they selfish or strategic? Your boss who plays politics but uses their influence to protect your department from budget cuts. Are they a sellout or a realist? Here's where it gets really uncomfortable. The idealist who refuses to play politics and loses all their influence can't help anyone. The pragmatist who gets their hands dirty but accumulates power can actually make things happen. So what do you do with all of this? First, stop being shocked when incompetent people succeed. You're not seeing clearly. They're competent at the game that matters, which is the game of power accumulation. Your game is different. That's fine, but don't confuse the two. Second, decide which elements of Machiavellian strategy you're willing to adopt. You don't have to become ruthless, but you probably need to become more strategic about visibility, more thoughtful about relationships with powerful people, more willing to shape narratives instead of just hoping the truth wins out. Third, understand that the qualities that make you good at the technical parts of your job often make you bad at the political parts. Analysis paralysis, nuanced thinking, consideration of multiple perspectives. These are virtues in problem solving. They're often liabilities in organizational combat. The person who sees one simple solution and charges forward with absolute confidence will usually beat the person who sees 17 complicated solutions and carefully weighs them. Not because the simple solution is better, because certainty is magnetic and nuance is boring. Think about the last time you watched someone get promoted who absolutely shouldn't have been. What did they have that you didn't? Probably not intelligence, probably not skill, but they had something. The ability to make powerful people believe in them, the willingness to claim credit without qualification, the strategic insight to be visible at crucial moments, the social intelligence to make allies out of rivals. These aren't stupid qualities. They're just not the qualities we pretend to value. Machiavelli's deepest insight isn't that you should be evil. It's that you should understand the difference between the world as it is and the world as we pretend it is. The world as we pretend it is rewards merit, truth, and hard work. The world as it is rewards visibility, narrative control, and strategic relationships. You can be angry about this. You can refuse to participate. But you cannot be surprised when the people who understand the real game beat the people who are playing the pretend game. Here's the final piece. Machiavelli wrote The Prince as a job application. He was trying to get hired by the Medici family after being tortured and exiled. Think about that. He's writing this brutally honest assessment of how power actually works, and he's doing it to demonstrate that he understands the game well enough to be useful to powerful people. The book is itself a Machiavellian move. It's not just describing the game, it's playing it. So when you see stupid people running the world, remember, they're probably not as stupid as they look. They've just optimized for a different metric than you have. And until you're willing to play the same game, or at least understand its rules clearly enough to make an informed choice about whether to play, you're going to keep being confused about why they're up there and you're down here. The choice is yours, but make it with your eyes open.